Thank you for putting up with me. Okay, I will call the meeting to order. And no one is excused today, so we need to move on to the adoption of the minutes from April 9th. And Wayne will move that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Call for post agenda items. Any post agenda? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Hubie?
Molly, I have one post agenda in camera, the ICF meeting, please.
Okay. Is there, I see no other hand. Todd?
Yeah, sorry, I had muted Kelly and Clarence there quickly before. There was some echo in the background, so I unmuted you. So now you have full control over your mute and your unmute again. Sorry about that.
I was just getting ready to leave, Todd. Shucks.
I promise not to do it again.
So, and I was supposed to give some time for lead up, I think, because of the 30-second gap, and I just took off. So, we're all moderator, sorry. Okay, thank you. So, we have an addition to the agenda from Brian. Seeing no other hands up, could I get a motion to adopt that agenda? Hubie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We have a question period. Notice of motion. Questions today from the moderator. Seeing none, we'll move on to our first item of the bylaws, item 7.1, and that is the tax rates for second and third reading. And I see Matt is occupying a big part of my screen, so it must mean he's important. Go.
Oh, you got bugged. I have not heard anything from anybody really about the tax rate specifically. So I think we're in pretty good position to do second and third reading. I have had a few conversations with ratepayers regarding the incentives and penalties bylaw and the deferral out to December 15th. And there is a lot of thanks coming back towards council and the county for providing that type of relief. So I think that was a good move, and it has certainly been appreciated by those I've spoke to.
Thank you, Matt. That's excellent. I see also that it's 11 o'clock, and so we'll get through this bylaw and get to our delegation at 11 o'clock. Brian.
I'll move second reading.
Brian's moving second reading. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And for third reading, Hugh, all in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried.
Great, thank you.
Oh yeah, second and third reading. That was right. That's what you wanted, Matt, was it? All okay, good. All right. I think that our RCMP delegation is, I see Sebastian's picture. He's laying down, he's standing up, he's moving all over the place.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out. We don't have life size in the RCMP, so this is a new thing.
You're doing great. And I think Staff Sergeant Bruce is around too.
Do you
Yes.
see me? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I am here.
Okay. Well, seeing as we found you, Mr. McDonald, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, Council. Good to see you all doing well. So I'm gonna break up my report to you in a couple of pieces. First off, I'm just gonna go through the stats quite briefly and talk about some of the things going on as far as what's happening in the county crime-wise. Then after that, I want to spend the second part of my report to you discussing our response to the pandemic and how we're maintaining police service to the citizens of Newell County. So first off, regarding the stats, you have that nice little RCMP graphic I sent you there that gives the ominous number of 48% increase in crime compared to this time last year, sorry. So I want to break those down by numbers so that you know what we're talking about. So when we're looking at property crime, we see, and these are either attempted or completed instances that are being reported. So this time last year for break and enters, we had 5 reports. This time, this year, we have 13 reports. Theft over $5,000. This time last year there were 2. This year we have 4. So while that's a 50% increase, we're still talking about four complaints. Theft over $5,000 last year. This time 7. This year 13. So the concerning numbers for me are obviously the increase in break and enters and theft over $5,000. So to explain where those are coming from, oil field thefts and this copper wire thefts have hit us. They're up. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if I want to make any correlation to COVID-19 and the situation that's going on, but certainly rural crime is seeing an increase. And I'm going to say because there's not as many people floating around the oil field, there are not as many residents floating around out in the open areas. This is making things a little bit more easy for the criminals to take advantage of. Having said that, our response to that in the RCMP, and Sebastian might speak to his area a little bit after me, I've engaged my detachment GIS, and so we're all working collaboratively. We've engaged the Medicine Hat Rural Property Crime Unit. We've engaged our criminal analysts from Calgary and also our district crime unit. We're working hand in hand with Bassano, with Strathmore and Drumheller Detachment on a coordinated response to deal with these guys. So we're getting really good intel. We know who the bad guys are. We know where they're moving. And we're working on tracking them down to these sites where they're doing the crime, collecting the evidence so that we can lay charges. We're also working closer with the recyclers to find out when these guys are showing up, what they're showing up with, and trying to nip them in the bud that way. We're still fighting the unscrupulous recyclers who will buy anything. So that's still being worked on. Those are that's jointly hand in hand. We've got a good handle on BIM here in the city, but there's still the dealers in Red Deer and in Calgary, and that's being worked on hand in hand with those police services. So the RCMP and Red Deer, of course, the Calgary Police Service that we partner with. So that's why you're seeing these increases. So I'll talk about rural patrols and how we're increasing those, and that goes hand in hand with the pandemic response. So I'll move into, I'll answer questions after I complete that, and then I'm going to move into our pandemic response. So it's business as usual at the RCMP detachment in Brooks. However, there are some changes. The office is closed to the public. How we're handling our dealings with front counter complaints, criminal record checks, and so on, is that they pick up the phone out front, they make contact with, or they phone the admin line and make contact with our front office staff. And we do as much as we can over the phone and through the computer. So whether that be people faxing documents to us, scanning documents to us, we are still providing services, but obviously we're providing service in another way that we're not having close contact with the public. The RCMP and my philosophy is that I want to keep my members as safe as possible so that I don't have a decrease in service provided to the county and the city of Brooks. And I have to keep my people as safe as possible and hopefully keep my people infection free. But other than that, we are still open for business. We're still providing all of the services that we provided before this started. Having said that, though, I will speak to criminal record checks. If it's a non-urgent criminal record check, like say volunteering, which has gone by the wayside right now anyways, we're not doing those. However, if a nursing home is hiring an urgent worker that needs to start tomorrow, then we are facilitating those urgent criminal record checks to make sure that people who need to be employed in those important sectors aren't log jammed by us not helping them. So those critical services are being maintained. I'm going to talk to you about contingencies in case, for whatever reason, my detachment does get infected with a rash of COVID-19. The province and the district, more importantly, have gathered a group of supplementary officers. They have a list of contingency officers. So if a big group of my detachment go down with COVID-19, I end up having to close my detachment, we'll start our business continuity plan. We would likely work out of a neighboring detachment, whether that be Bassano detachment or Red Cliff detachment, depending on the situation. There's a number of members sick. The district will call out members on this on-call list from other detachments. We've made arrangements for hotel accommodations, probably in Bassano, and we'll be able to maintain operations. So the contingency planning's in place should something happen. But up to now, I'm happy to say, knock on wood, we've had no one sick, and everybody has been issued PPE. We're doing pretty good for supplies. We're maintaining some pretty stringent rules around the office, and that will lead into rule patrols. So what we've directed is that members are to be out of the office and work independently as much as possible. So the expectation is that members will come to work, they will do whatever paperwork they need to get done in the office, and then they're getting in their police cars and they're spending their shift in their police cars. So kind of part of this is high visibility. So my members are told, get out in the county, drive around, make yourself visible so that people see the police are out there, they see the service is still being provided. So in addition to that, I'm going to talk about how we're responding to enforcement of the Public Health Act. So obviously, Alberta Health Services is the lead agency on this, and their direction is education first. And if education's not working, then we have the stick of laying the charge. So I can tell you, as of yesterday, we've only laid one charge, and we laid a charge yesterday that was in Brooks. The situation around that was we had a family in quarantine because one of the family members tested positive for COVID-19. One of those family members that was supposed to be in self-quarantine was found out of the residence. We located him, and he was charged under the Public Health Act for violating the quarantine, and we got him back to his house. And now we're going to be doing very regular checks on that residence to ensure compliance. So that's one instance where we have laid a charge. The province and RCMP management consider charging people to be the high end of the scale, and certainly that met the threshold for charging that person. So that was done. Otherwise, education. When the members are out driving around in the communities and they do see large groups that aren't really following those social distance guidelines, the members are rolling down their window and reminding people, hey guys, you got to separate a bit more, keep mindful of the rules, and that's that. It's been working well. To be honest with you, we're seeing a lot more issues right in the city, and for obvious reasons, there's a lot more concentration of people in the city than the rural areas. There hasn't been really, I think, any problems for us coming from the rural municipalities or out in the country. So I think people are heeding the call, and they're doing really well. Something came up with the city, I'll just touch on this briefly, about reporting violations. So Barry Morishita kind of brought this to our attention yesterday, and we worked through the day through our management on it. The messaging up to now has been, if there's a public health violation, to call or to go online and report it to AHS. So how that's problematic, I guess, and what Barry brought up, and I get his point, is that if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and there's a large house party or there's a large gathering, reporting that to Alberta Health isn't going to get dealt with, obviously, at 1 o'clock in the morning. So Barry's concern was, how do we deal with these things expeditiously and at the time? So that kind of went up through our management, and Barry pushed that up through the province. And so now the messaging's come back down that the RCMP will take complaints of people not following the quarantine, people having mass gatherings. We will dispatch an officer to those complaints and deal with them appropriately, whether that be education, or if it is a egregious offense, we will lay a charge. So in a nutshell, that's what's happening here in Brooks. Like I said, it seems to be working well so far. Obviously, as you're all aware, the numbers are going up exponentially every day since the weekend here. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. But our service is maintaining. One question had come up, whether there was an increase in domestic violence, and rationally one would think that domestic violence could be on the increase given everybody being staying home. But to be honest, domestic violence isn't up. Civil disturbances aren't really up. It's pretty flat over last year. So time will tell as this thing goes on if that's going to increase or not. But we still have all our domestic violence partners engaged, and we're ready to respond to whatever comes our way. So that's what I got for you if you have any questions.
Thank you, Bruce. Lots of positive news in there. Thank you. Kelly.
First off, thank you very much for the work that you're doing and continue to do for our communities. And I wish you all the best to stay safe and well through this pandemic. My question was more about information. As I miss my grandbabies so desperately, what are the fines for first, second, and third offense? Not that I'm planning to risk that. I can't afford that, but I just wanted to know what that dollar figure looks like.
So I'll tell you, I'm only concerned with the first fine because that's what is with our authority to lay. So we can lay a fine for we can give you a ticket for $1,000. With the surcharge, it works out to be $1,200. That's the ticket we laid yesterday. However, having said that, the court I believe, and maybe Sebastian can correct me, but I believe it's upwards of $100,000 of fine that the court can impose. But realistically, if we're going to lay a charge, it's a ticket, and it's a $1,000 fine with a $200 surcharge, so works out to be $1,200. And then to the second part of your question, so how we're enforcing that? The first offense, if education doesn't work, you get the ticket. The second offense, you get a summons to appear directly in court in front of a judge. The third offense, we're locking you up, and you're going to be put before a justice of the peace, and you'll have to explain to a justice why. Well, actually, I can't say that because it's the Public Health Act, so it's out of the jurisdiction of a justice of the peace. So if it were to come to the point, and I don't think it will, but if it were to come to the point that we had to arrest somebody, they would have to be brought before a provincial court judge. So there's been very few tickets written in the province so far because, like I say, health services in the province's line is that we need to deal with this through education. The fines, the tickets are reserved for the most egregious offenses where people are blatantly, in this instance yesterday in Brooks, that person was egregiously and blatantly violating the quarantine. The police and the bylaw, the CPO, had been there just the day before to check on them and warn them. So this person that was charged had full knowledge they were breaking the law, and they were charged. So that's my answer for you.
Much appreciated.
It's a good system. The education is important. Wayne.
First off, condolence to you and all your officers for what happened down in Nova Scotia. Thanks for your service. My question is, I was reading through your report, and there's one called criminal harassment. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so criminal harassment, that's usually domestic related. So criminal harassment is when you're being repeatedly called or harassed by an individual person. So I'll use the domestic perspective. A wife and her husband are separated, and the husband repeatedly drives by her house. He repeatedly sends her text messages. He repeatedly phones her, and in order to, the threshold to lay a charge of criminal harassment is you have to be able to prove an ongoing series of activity that, like I said, harassing phone calls, harassing text messages. It's almost like stalking. So that's what criminal harassment is.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'll switch it over to Sebastian. Are you hanging around for Sebastian's report, Bruce?
I'm going to stick it out till the end, ma'am.
Perfect.
All right. Well, good morning or afternoon for everyone. I hope everyone's doing safe and well. So I'm going to split up my report in first to talk about the fourth quarter report that I sent you guys. And that was from our priorities that we had agreed upon last March. The first thing in the report I wanted to say is that as with we're dedicated to continue to provide a high level of service to all our residents in the current crisis. Rest assured, we are fully operational to answer all calls for service in the safest manner possible during these unprecedented times. So what does that mean, the safest manner possible? That means in events where we don't need to have face-to-face contact, we aren't. Try and do it over the phone. In events that we do need to have face-to-face, you may see members wear PPE such as masks or glasses. There was a really nice by Brooks Attachment, they had a video showing what the masks look like. I think it was Corporal Argue, which really helps residents realize what it looks like. So that's how we're trying to keep everyone safe. Our community engagement obviously is going to change a little bit, but we'll get into that as we go into our new priorities. But for this year, I'd like to say I'm really proud of the members here at this attachment. Constable Bisson, Constable Tatarin, Constable Gia, and Constable Noel. Much as I'm reporting you the information, they're really the guys who are on the ground who are actually doing these priorities. For instance, they had 127 school visits. That includes Bassano, Gem, and Rosemary. So that doesn't just mean them walking around. They were doing presentations and talking to schools about road safety. We had to talk about mental health and domestic. So I'm really proud of the guys for doing that. We had 47 major event participation. That includes town hall meetings, sporting events, and major community gatherings. There was over 400 infractions and warnings given. And I can report that I ran the numbers, about 94 to 95% were from out of town residents who were speeding through on Highway 1. We checked over 1,000 vehicles for sobriety and 32 impaired, proactive impaired. We found a large amount of impaired on Highway 56, headed over to 1, that was almost 30% of them. We continue our initiative of rural property crime. As I said before, those are proactive patrols in our rural areas to make residents feel safe. We did over 496 in our communities, and we did 8 total local news reports. If you may have noticed, we put a report in our APP each quarter so that residents can be aware as well. And we as well got some 9 social media reports. We had 79 motor vehicle collisions, which was up, and 4 fatalities. As I said before, we sent a letter to MLA in partnership with Bassano Council to try and see if we can get speed reduction in the area between Bassano. We know that could take a long time. We laid 3 financial fraud warrants and 5 charges based on that. We did see an increase in break and enters, and that is directly related to copper theft, as we've been discussing. I'd like to comment on my happiness with, we have been having a new approach with Strathmore and Drumheller, as Sergeant McDonald said, sharing information, which has been very important for us to actually start identifying. We now know who these SOCs are, and we're just working on operations to try and get them and prevent. We completed a engagement with all our copper partners to help them better prevent copper theft, so that they can have better cameras, surveillance as well as reporting. We found one of our biggest issues is that we weren't getting reports that they were happening, so it was hard for us to do the trends. So copper theft is up, but we're working hard with the detachments. Thanks a lot to Brooks and Strathmore for sharing information so that we can start, I hate to use the word curve, but curve the copper theft. I wouldn't say it's COVID related, but it could be in the future with copper theft. Our biggest issue is, like Bruce said, is Bassano has a large area that we cover with lots of oil field sites, and with people not working, there's less people on the property. So we could see more of an increase, and we're going to be as prepared as we can. We did not see an increase in actual residential break and enters, which we were pretty happy about. I want to talk about rural patrols. So one of the fears of people being isolated and things being closed down with our residents, we found, is that they were fearful that maybe the police weren't out there. So we've been really pushing our patrols to the point that this month alone, we've done over 71 patrols, and that's in all of our areas. Because one of the biggest things to make people feel safe, as well as to help prevent crime, is just flying the flag. So we've been really pushing our members. As Bruce said, members are in the office, they're on the road doing patrols. So that's been, I'm really happy with the guys for increasing that. So we're hoping that our rural residents, including our city residents, can actually see us more and feel more comfortable and know that we are there. We're fully operational. We don't have anyone homesick at the moment. That would be for our rural patrols. As for the pandemic, it is business as usual for Bassano as well. We are still responding to calls. Like I said, where we can mitigate risk for our residents, trying to do things over the phone, because the last thing we want to do is pass this virus to anyone who's at risk. We are fully staffed. Our office is close to the public. but we are answering phone calls. Our PS is working from home, but our admin line is forwarded to her phone, and she answers the call between 8 and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, and we've seen great responses for that. There's the same thing as Bruce said, is for essential. We've seen a huge decrease in the amount of people looking for criminal records, as unfortunately right now in this economy, not a lot of jobs are hiring. With our BCP, our continuing plan, same thing. If Bassano goes down, there's provincial resources available for us, and we are having the same plan as well. If our detachment gets shut down, we would either go to Brooks or Gleason, and services would continue. If a big change in services happen, we would obviously let our partners know. Now, we haven't seen an increase in domestic like that, but what we have seen is when we do have calls, they're more intense. And I would suspect that's from the isolation, but just be a coincidence during the time. Traffic. So a lot of people have wondering if we're actually still on the roads doing traffic. So Bassano, we're still there making sure people are going safe, but we're also not looking to do as much enforcement. We still need to make sure the roads are safe. I'd like to highlight a member, Constable Andre Bisson, who's out there to make sure people are safe. And we did actually issue a ticket. We had a person from Calgary who just thought it was a good idea to drive 174 kilometers an hour, and they were issued a ticket because they could have killed someone. So that's great. And it was a Honda. I don't know how you could go that fast in a Honda CRV, but so that's our report. The changes in engagement, well, the schools are closed. You're not going to see as many visits, but we've started a program where we're going to start reading to kids over online. We're starting to, we obviously, as you've seen Brooks and us, we're doing the birthday patrols when we can. Obviously, when we're busy, we can't do that. We're doing our best to stay engaged in these times when people are isolated. That's my report. If there's any questions, concerns.
Thank you, Sebastian. I'm curious, I know what SOBs are, but what are SOCs?
Oh, sorry. Subject of complaint. So people that we deal with. Yeah, sorry about that.
Perfect. Questions for Sebastian? Excellent reports, gentlemen. Yes, thank you for all you're doing. I really do believe the visibility of the RCMP and CPOs is really important at this time. So keep up the great work. And further to Councillor Hammergren's comments, yes, the job you do from day to day, you get up not knowing what might occur. Most of us don't have the threats like you folks do. So thank you for choosing your careers, and thank you for all you do for us and our community. Stay safe. We need you. And yeah, thanks for being here today.
Thank you. One last thing I forgot to mention, some good news on copper theft is that Calgary, one of our big recyclers who are stolen, able to lay about 56 charges on a couple of our large recycling facilities today. May help a bit for our areas.
Actually, I saw something about that in regards to catalytic converters.
Yes.
And charges, so good. Nothing else, I'll move to we do have a Safe Communities report from Kendra. I'm assuming Kendra is not present?
I am.
Oh, okay. So where are you on my screen, Kendra? All right, Kendra, go ahead.
Okay. So I guess yeah. As far as community relations, obviously because of COVID-19, things like the community consultation and things that like at the fire hall, like the car seat clinics have been canceled until further notice. On the social media front, we've been having a lot of success, especially with getting information out about COVID-19, as Sebastian mentioned. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page. Our Facebook is by far the most I guess, the most popular. We have had 2 posts in the last week. One of them was some photos of Corporal Argue wearing the masks that they might see the officers in, and the other was a video, and it was just, again, Corporal Argue, and he was kind of addressing the community, thanking them for following the rules and reminding them why we have those rules, and mentioning the masks again. And each of those, I just checked this morning, in each of those posts, respectively, it tells you how much or how far they reached, and it said each of them respectively reached over 6,000 people, which is almost half the population, which I thought was pretty awesome. We've even on the page been getting like individual messages. People have been commenting. We've gotten, I think, over 300 more people following our page, so it's just nice to be able to have that far reach to get that information out there. So that's been kind of awesome. After speaking with Corporal Argue and also Sergeant Searle, we have actually decided that we are going to be, it's either going to be every week or every second week, we're going to be releasing a video on behalf of an officer, and I'm going to go ahead and take a guess and say that that's usually going to be Corporal Argue, but it's going to be doing things such as addressing like everyone has, well, not everyone, but lots of people have social media, and you see some of the things people post, and some, I've, for one, have seen a lot of posts saying, oh, well, I saw someone get pulled over and fined on the side of the road, and as Sergeant McDonald mentioned, that hasn't happened. There's only been 1 fine handed out. So one of the things we're hoping to address with those videos that we're posting probably every week is going to be addressing any rumors, clarifying some information, making sure people have up-to-date information straight from the source, on what's allowed, what's not allowed, that kind of thing. So we figured that would be kind of a good idea. Kind of moving along. As far as mental health initiatives, I know that Safe Communities, I've been in touch with Lynn Pye Matheson, and I'm gonna see how Safe Communities can kind of aid in what they're doing. Again, the community presentations have kind of been postponed until public gatherings are allowed again. So I know that a couple of the officers were pretty bummed that we didn't get to go to the BYLAWS auction because they were looking forward to that. So I'm sure that'll be one that gets rebooked. But moving along again, the mock car crash. I forget if at the last meeting I had already mentioned it, but we are not moving forward with it this year. That was actually decided before coronavirus was a prominent issue. Just because of some position changes within the committee, it was decided that it wouldn't be a good idea. So in June, whether it's by video conference or not, it'll be 2021 will be in progress for planning. Kind of along with the other cancellations, the bike rodeos and such, they haven't been officially canceled, but that's kind of looking what the outcome will be. And then finally, the last thing on my report is something that I'm actually pretty excited about, is with the Rural Crime Watch. We have finally found an alert and broadcasting system that fits what everyone was kind of wanting. I know when I started my position in January, I was kind of coming into the discussion while it was already in progress, and there was people mentioning that some people would prefer phone calls, some people wanted text messages, some people wanted emails, and the phone calls from before weren't clear, and just like lots of comments on what they kind of wanted for change. So I did send my report, and I'm not sure if you guys all have it in front of you, but included in that report kind of gives you the gist of what this broadcasting system is all about. So it's $623 a year. And in that, we actually get a discount for being a Rural Crime Watch. But in that, we can send out alerts in the format that people prefer. So this past week, I've actually, since we've confirmed it, I've actually individually emailed every single person we have on our contact list and asked them how they would prefer to be contacted and making sure that information's all up to date. So prominently, a lot of people are wanting emails and text messages. Calls are surprisingly not the most common preference, but it's still there. I've gotten a lot of really good comments on people saying, thank God, I don't like answering the phone. It's like, this one's way clearer, like that kind of thing. So I think people are pretty happy with this change. For this year, we are going to be using our funds from our last Real Crime Watch auction to pay for it. And I am just chatting with Peter New, the president, and we are talking about how at the Real Crime AGM, it was confirmed that we will be asking for a annual membership fee. It's not decided what that fee will be yet, and it hasn't come into play yet. But if I took a wild guess, I'm thinking it's going to be sitting at around $10. Around there, but don't quote me on that. That is still in progress, but that's going to be something that helps to fund this. And I think it'll be a lot better to ask for that, or a lot more understandable to ask for that fee when we're actually giving something, I would say, pretty awesome in return. For this, it doesn't have to, you don't have to be physically in the detachment to send out an alert. All of the officers can actually have this app on their phone and send out an alert right from their phone to all of the recipients. So I thought that would be kind of awesome. And like I said, it's in any format that that person prefers. What was I going to say? There was a question by one of the members if they get a phone call, if this system will leave a voicemail, and it will. You can actually opt out of getting phone calls. If you answer the phone right when it calls you, there's a button you can press to opt out if you no longer want to receive them anymore. Yeah, and for things that I guess it's worth mentioning, for things like stolen vehicles, stuff like that, where it's a picture is kind of pretty relevant. We will just be including in the broadcast, like, hey, check your email with the Rural Crime Watch email. We'll be sending one out, just because the system doesn't send out photos, but it does just about everything else. But that is about all I have for my report.
Thanks, Kendra. Any questions? Hubie?
I think the fee is going to be $20 a year, Kendra.
Was that what it was? Okay, I knew I was behind on that one aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a motion at the AGM, so that's going to be $20 a year.
Perfect, okay.
The other question, do you know how soon this alert system will be implemented?
How soon it will be? Well, we sent in, so you can, the way that this alert system accepts payments is by check or credit card, and since there's no credit card associated with the Real Crime Watch, we mailed our check in yesterday. So I am hoping, fingers crossed, I'm hoping by the beginning of next week. I will be sending out a big broadcast to everyone that has signed up so far, saying, hey, this is in place, this is where you can expect it, all that kind of stuff. But basically, as soon as they get that check, he will be giving me a call saying your account's active and you can send out those messages. So I'll make sure that everyone that has confirmed with me. So like I said, we had that huge list of over 100 people that had their emails on there, and I have individually emailed all of those. The people who have responded are the people who will be included in the new alert system. So I'll be working with Mavis Deans with the Rural Crime Watch to make sure that if we have any other method of contacting those people we haven't heard from, we will get a hold of them. But I'll make sure that people who have confirmed know that that's in place. And I'm hoping that's going to be by early next week.
Okay, thanks, Kendra. Great report.
Anything else for Kendra? Yes, thank you, Kendra. Yeah. Stay safe in your Safe Communities work. All right, next on the agenda is a municipal enforcement report.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. This report is for January to March for our department. And during these months, our department focused on intersection safety, distracted driving, and seat belts. There were 19 warnings issued and 5 tickets during this time by our department, with also 28 case files that we investigated. Our department also assisted RCMP and fire twice for traffic control on motor vehicle collisions. In addition to our regularly assigned duties, our department has been given the authorization to enforce the Public Health Act for the COVID-19. Our department is working in conjunction with Alberta Health Services and the RCMP on any complaints received regarding COVID-19 concerns. With our department, one thing we are watching when we're doing our patrols is the playground areas, places where we think people may gather, and just making sure that we're not seeing large groups and everybody's social distancing aspect not being close together. So, and we're, as the RCMP mentioned, doing the same thing, education. Big on that. That's what we're trying to get out there, letting people know, look, this is recommendations, this is what their Health Act states, and doing that. So a lot of education on letting people comment on any questions or concerns they have. As well, our department is also still continuing to utilize the speed signs to help educate the voters and collect data when needed on traffic patterns related to speeding. Obviously, enclosed is a report provided further information on tickets versus warnings and case files that we investigated. That concludes my report for this quarter.
Questions from anyone? There's other information there in the report as well. Thank you, John.
Correct. Yes, there is.
Thank you for the work you are doing for us, the RCMP and everyone else. Much appreciated. So everyone, in item 8, thank you so much, and take care till we see you again.
Thanks.
We'll move backwards in our agenda to item 7.2. I believe that's Lane.
Molly, there is one policy that John would like to deal with as well, if we could deal with that while he's here. That would be item 10.1.
Item 10.1. 2. So that is on a request for a decision.
Yeah, we're
review.
Decision for a policy that I'd like to propose. Yes.
Okay.
I can give some background here. It's in regards to traffic enforcement authority for community peace officers on 1 and 2 digit highways. This requirement is requested by the Solicitor General's Department to authorize community peace officers to conduct traffic enforcement on the 1 and 2 digit highways. Currently, right now, we cannot do traffic enforcement on the 1 and 2 digit highways. During our day-to-day operations, when we're traveling on these highways to go to calls of service, safety concerns to other motorists have been observed. Our department, which is a marked patrol units observed by the public, has to then contact the RCMP and report the concern. This does cause a delay in immediately stopping the safety concern. In addition, our department does not have direct radio contact with the RCMP. The RCMP and sheriffs are the enforcement agencies that are doing active traffic enforcement on these highways. The policy presented puts conditions on how our department would conduct traffic enforcement. We are not looking to actively patrol these highways, just to have measures in place to help mitigate safety concerns to the public by stopping any unsafe actions. So I'd like to present this policy to see if for adoption there that I can, as per the SOLGEM requirements, show that I brought it forward.
So, John, is this something new, or is this something that you and Devin are wanting to participate in?
Yes, it would be a different change of direction. Like right now on 1 and 2 digit highways, if we see something, we contact RCMP and then we go under the direction, they'll respond and deal with it. So the only one we can actually actively stop someone for a highway would be on a 3 digit highway. So the SOLGEN now, for safety reasons, has said community peace officers can do this as long as they put a policy in place that they can actually stop vehicles on 1 and 2 digit highways that are doing something unsafe, and that way that can be dealt with immediately. So that the other motorists that are traveling on that highway would be safe, and then we can deal with it right away and go from there. In my policy, I have shown that we're not looking to actively patrol these highways. What we're looking at is just in transit, when we're going from one location to another on this highway, and we see a motorist go by doing an unsafe action that's putting other motorists in danger, and we're in a marked patrol unit that the public can see, that we are then in the position that we can stop this unsafe action right away and deal with it. Because right now, like I say, we'd actually have to phone 911 and like anybody else and say, look, we see this going on, can you send somebody out? So it would all depend on where the RCMP are at. So the action wouldn't be dealt with right away, I guess. That's what I'm saying. There'd be stuff we'd have to do to try and get somebody out there to deal with it. With this policy, if it gets passed by council, I can put in a proposal to the Sole Gens Department. They can change our appointment to allow us to, when we're in transit on Highway 1 and 2, again, to deal with these matters if we see it. But we'd also be going by this policy saying it's not actively patrolling, and I want to stress that. It's only back and forth, and it's if you see something immediate safety concern.
So, John, at the present time, you can do the 3-digit highways.
Correct.
You just can't like do number 1, 36.
Correct.
Those would be the two.
Yeah, that's right. The 1 and 2-digit highways we can't do. If it's a emergency scene, we can assist with traffic, but if it's an enforcement matter, we have to call the sheriffs or the RCMP. And again, being that we don't have direct radio contact, again, it would be by telephone. So, which would, again, cause a delay in the response.
All right. Questions, Kelly? And Alan?
So I see in the backup that the reason we weren't on those highways before was for safety for our officers. How and why has that changed? And also I have a question around whether or not you've spoken to the RCMP in the respective detachments at this time.
Thank you for the questions. Number 2 question, yes, we have. We've actually had my Officer Leaks, actually just had an incident here last month where we actually had to speak to the RCMP on this because he had a motorist high rate of speed, unsafe manner and all that, so we had to contact the RCMP. RCMP were, my understanding from Officer Leaks, were kind of surprised, wondering, okay, why don't we just deal with it right now? And we were explaining to them, this is why we can't, because there's a process so that we'd have to look at going through. So that was one occurrence where this has happened and put us in that position, and where we had to call the RCMP, and again, their response from that officer that attended was, why are you not dealing with it? So, and they were more than happy to deal with it. They were just kind of confused why we weren't doing it ourselves, right? So this is kind of what made me decide that maybe we should be looking at this when Solgen gave this opportunity. The first part of your question about the travel and the safety, first of all, we are accessing number 1 and 36. Sometimes we're finding that because it's the quickest way to get to another location if we get a call. So we are finding that we are on there, and so because we do utilize them, we utilize other roads more than we do number 1 and number 36, but we do go on them. The safety part of it, what I also put in my policy is basically that there's even a recommended speed to do it, like as far as how fast I want you to go. Plus, the other thing is that you have to, for safety, complete the emergency vehicle operators course before you would even be allowed to do this, which myself and my officer have successfully completed. which gives us additional training on how to travel and deal with situations when we are exceeding the speed. So I put in conditions on this policy and what the Solgen's also asking so that it's as safe as possible. I hope that answered or helped with the question for sure.
Ellen?
My question was answered. My question was regarding the 40-hour emergency operations course, and that has already been completed. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, we've actually went above what some do. Some departments have only done it once, and that was it. We've actually done it more than once, just to keep up a refresher, which under the Solgen policy, you just have to complete it once. And we've done it more than that, just so we've actually went above what the Solgen required.
Brian?
So my question is in regards to what category does this put you in a different category within the province beyond what the designation is for our community peace officer? And the reason I ask that is because with the province forcing the counties to move to funding policing, some counties were able to use some of that money for their, I think it's called enhanced police service. Does this change you and Devin's designation into that type thing, or move you closer to it? Maybe provide some information on that.
Thank you for the question. No, I don't believe it does. Basically, this has been a long time coming. Like, this has been several years that the police officers have brought forward and asked about getting authority on 1 and 2 digit highways just because of the public safety aspect of it. And it's now come to the forefront through studies and statistics brought forward from our association, showing that there are safety matters on the 1 and 2 digit highways, that because we're on them and that we're in a marked unit, and the public doesn't differentiate between us and the RCMP when they see in their mind a marked police unit. They're wondering, why is that unit or officer in that unit not stopping that occurrence? So I think that was, and the safety issue to the other motorists. So this was brought forward, and finally Solgen, through a lot of discussion and study, decided, saying, well, you know what, let's look at it. We're not enhancing, but we're going to give the officers, community peace officers, the option to look at this if they're on 1 and 2 digit highways. So, and they also asked for doing that, put a policy in place, because that's not going to be our primary focus. So that's why I wanted to, in the policy, make sure I emphasized in transit, because like you said, Brian, I don't want this to be our job. We have sheriffs, which identified, and RCMP to do this. This is just going from point A to point B. Our focus is still going to be county roads and all that. That's just for public safety. If we're on that highway, number 1 and 36, we can deal with it right away and then get back to what we normally do.
Thanks, John.
Clarence?
Oh, I didn't have my hand up, but I will make a comment.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. 36 runs from the south end of our county to the north end. Highway 1 runs from the east to the west and west to the east. Seems rather ridiculous to me to have people traveling those roads who could potentially be enforcing something that's going wrong, and them not being able to do so when they can on every three. I just find the distinction ridiculous. So I'm certainly in favor of this motion.
Thanks, Clarence. Wayne? That's whose hand I saw.
The only question I have, is this going to cost us any more extra money?
Wayne, to answer that, no. Again, this will be basically when we're doing our own duties. Actually, And as far as if we do write a ticket, because it's still within the county, the ticket will be put on there as the county, because it's in the county there, so even the revenue part. But it's not gonna, it's gonna be a public safety thing. It's not gonna, I believe, take any more additional time except for just a traffic stop and writing the ticket. Yes, I guess I can't say that there might not be a court, but overall, I don't see it taking a lot of extra time. So no.
So John, are there lots of rurals embarking on this adventure?
My understanding is yes. I kind of looked at some other areas that we're doing that. Rocky Mountain House up there, their county area, they're looking at, well, she's already implemented a policy. They're looking at definitely going ahead. I'm pretty confident Cypress County, because Cypress County had an incident like this, and I know they were one of the first ones, I believe, to even bring this up, asking why they can't enforce on one-digit highways if there's a public safety concern. So yeah, there is.
Good. Trace.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make that motion to adopt the policy as presented for enforcement of 1 and 2 digit highways.
Thanks, Tracy. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, Ellen, you're just voting? All in favor?
No,
You
I
have
had a question.
Oh,
I had
okay,
a
sorry.
Question. Does it take additional time to go to court if a ticket holder will decide to go to court to fight the ticket? Does that take extra time out of our CPOs?
Well, that would be extra time, but that would be dependent on, like, we could be there for another matter, but basically anybody has a right, if I write a ticket, to go to court. So I'm not going to say it couldn't be possible, that it might take some time because we're going to court, but I would answer that and say minimal, because again, we're not actively enforcing this. So due to that, our time on the highways is going to be limited, which means there's a decrease on the chances of actually stopping someone, which again means decrease of going to court. So minimal.
All right. Seeing no other questions, and we have a motion on the floor to accept this policy. In favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, John. Is there anything else today that you have?
I think that's everything we've got taken care of. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. All right. I guess it's not quite lunchtime. Should we go back to item 7.2, schedule of fees? Yes. And that is Lane or?
Yeah, Matt was available previously, but it's fairly straightforward. The schedule of fees bylaw has 2 amendments in it. One is to reflect the discussion that took place during the last meeting about going with one rate for residential and commercial accounts in the hamlets for water services. And then the other one is the fact that we're needing to include a category for subdivision fee applications that we would collect once we're going through this transition going forward with ORS. So those are really the 2 matters that need to be addressed in a new schedule of fees or an amended schedule of fees bylaw.
Are there questions from anyone? If not, we would need motion for first reading. Wayne is moving. All in favor of first reading? Opposed? Motion is carried. Do you guys want to go on with all the readings today? May as well. Second reading, someone moves. Anne Marie? Opposed? Motion is carried. And for consent to be moved, all in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Seeing no hands, that was unanimous. So our final motion for third reading made by Kelly. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So that completes page 1 of our agenda. We have a 1 o'clock delegation. That is a phone in also, I believe, for that. So how long do you guys want for lunch? Is half an hour enough, or you want 3/4 of an hour, or ideas? Decision? You want me just Lionel, or yeah, Lionel has an idea.
I'd like to have 3/4 if I could.
Do you need an hour? 3/4 is good?
3/4 is good.
Okay, we're going to go with Lionel's suggestion. So at 1:45, we will come back to our computers.